to hear a presentation from Tom, who you all know is one of our regular members, and he's going to talk about Nashville's food history and may have a surprise for you. So here's Tom.
Thank you and good afternoon. Thanks for braving the rain and coming out here today. And thank you, Gene. Gene is giving me another chance after my last presentation, which was From Stagecoach Inns to Grand Hotels, A Short History of Nashville Lodging. My steamboat whistle got embedded in one of the slides, and it kept repeating over and over again. Wouldn't stop. But and I'd like to especially thank my wife, Wanda, who's here. But she's one who discovered this book that you'll be hearing about today. The book is called Our Food Heritage. And one day, probably 15 years ago, I went down to the Metro Archives when it was down at the Green Hills location, and just reading through history books and learning about Nashville, and spent probably 4 to 5, 6 hours there. And then Wanda came and joined me after she got off work. And she just comes strolling down the aisle, and she looks along the shelves and says, this one looks interesting. So she pulls out this book, and it was the discovery of the day, and of the year, in fact. It was Our Food Heritage. And in it also was a piece about the Hermitage Hotel. The first chef of the Hermitage Hotel was noted, Umberto Corsini. And I Google searched the name, tried to get a phone number, and called, blind call to a Corsini name, and said, by chance, are you related to a former chef who worked at the Hermitage Hotel? And the lady said, why, yes, he was my grandfather. So she came in with photographs and his life story, his diary, his handwritten menus, and just a great treasure trove of discovery there. So it's funny how things work, but I'd like to especially thank Ken Feith, who is here today. Metro Archives, of course, now is in the Downtown Public Library location on the 3rd floor, and I encourage you to visit there and work with their wonderful staff. So our food history is a vast and fascinating topic. Something we all know quite a lot about since we eat regularly. And to localize this, this particular image is from an exhibit that was at the Tennessee State Museum 5 years ago called Let's Eat, Origins and Evolution of Tennessee Food. So this particular image, you all may remember that your favorite country store or general store where you could find unusual and interesting things, and maybe sit out front in a rocking chair. So here's a little quiz. Can we take a quiz today? We have, these aren't necessarily the answers, but what is Tennessee's state vegetable? Anybody here like okra? Does anybody not like okra? Okay. Tennessee's official state fruit? Tennessee's official state drink? Surely it's not bourbon, because you couldn't teach that in school. But maybe Mountain Dew, maybe iced tea. And then the official dish of Tennessee. Now these are named by our legislators, but I doubt it's a moon pie, but who hasn't sometime or another made a dinner out of a couple of moon pies and a glass of milk? We have fried chicken, a red-eyed gravy. Incidentally, the gravy in red-eye gravy has black coffee in it. Anyway, okay, answers? Of course, tomato is a fruit, yes. The hot slaw was just recently named. So, is anybody here hungry today, by the way? You'll be really getting more hungry as this wears on. I'd like to share a couple of my favorite food history books, and if you don't write these down, I'd be glad to share it again afterwards. But This one I discovered at a recent Southern Festival of Books, and it's extremely well written, both about the foods, the indigenous foods of Tennessee, and the old historic homes, back to the pioneer days. Here's another one. This is a really fun book to read. Duncan Hines. His restaurant guidebooks used to be the most widely used directories in the United States for restaurants. These were published for 27 years, ending in 1962. He lived in Kentucky, but his guidebooks, by the way, were printed here in Nashville. We know him today mostly as a brand name on a cake mix box, right? He was a traveling salesman who, as a hobby, made a listing of his favorite restaurants, and he started giving them to his friends for Christmas gifts, and it blossomed from there into a publishing business. Here's another great book. This chronicles America's first fast food operation, which was along almost the entire transcontinental railroad network. These were Harvey houses. Who's heard of Harvey houses? Okay. They say the Harvey House waitresses civilized the West. They moved out to the Wild West, and they stayed by the hundreds. And when each train came in, they would have a complete meal ready very quickly, according to a timetable. But there was over 150 Harvey houses over the years. This one, quirky little book, is very educational about vegetables, and it weaves history, world history, into each chapter, and it includes some American anecdotes about George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Mark Twain, and others. So we're getting closer to Tennessee history here. This would make you think of the word truck farming. Who's heard of truck farming? Well, I've heard it too, but I didn't really know what it meant. I assumed it was what you see here, somebody with a truck bringing their produce to the market, but it in fact originates from a French word, truquis, is the word for, it's truquis farming, which really means barter or exchange. So it's a form of commercialized farming, not just to put dinner on your own table, but to sell it for barter or exchange. And of course, over the years, from the mule-drawn plow to truck farming to commercialization, consolidation, food science, genetics, we continue to evolve. But we always know it tastes good. There's no doubt that artificial intelligence is playing a role in creating these answers, AI, but I thought, what is Nashville known for its food now? So, hot chicken is the number one answer, but there's no real historical roots to hot chicken. Anyway, it's interesting. Here, we're getting a little closer. Nashville famous for its biscuits, a staple in Southern cuisine. What food can you get in Nashville? Gravy, chicken biscuits, fried chicken, fried pickles, barbecued pulled pork, hamburgers, fried catfish, fried okra jam, chess pie. And the list at the bottom, see here, I call it the robot. The AI robot thinks Tennessee whiskey is a food. Maybe you dip it in the cornbread or something. So some Nashville food firsts that did not make it into this book. But cotton candy. Cotton candy was invented, believe it or not, by a dentist. And right here in Nashville, and it became popular in 1897. Krispy Kreme donuts came initially from Paducah, Kentucky, but the first regular store was here in Nashville. And they're kind of hard to find right now. Krispy Kreme has kind of gone the way of the dodo bird, I guess. But then we have Goo Goo Clusters. We all know about that. They got a very fun store to go to down, 3rd Avenue near Broadway. And Kentucky Fried Chicken franchising. I'd like to thank Bill Carey for his great book. It's the best business history book about Nashville that I've ever seen. It's Fortunes, Fiddles, and Fried Chicken. And in it, he explains how businessman Jack Massey met Colonel Sanders, and in fact read his horoscope. Sanders believed in horoscopes, and timed his business meeting in such a way that they cut a good business deal to become partners. But fast food company to go on the New York Stock Exchange. And then there's Martha White Flour, you may remember from Grand Ole Opry radio advertisements and other things. If you enjoyed this kind of trivia, I'd like to point out the TV show on the History Channel, Foods That Built America. And it's really what motivated me to do this presentation. It's such a great show. And apparently there's 47 episodes so far. So here's the little image of the Krispy Kreme donuts. And this photo was taken just yesterday. Now, clever marketing thing, they have donut holes. Now, a donut hole must just be made of thin air. So certainly no calories in a donut hole. But here they... Here they are coming off the line. So those are your donut holes being cooked yesterday. So please enjoy. Here we go. Very clever little machine there. So back to early Nashville, we have to thank the Cumberland River location of Nashville and the steamboats and the river traffic for helping to make Nashville prosperous, and certainly for bringing in an amazing amount of food. How much would a steamboat hold? A steamboat would hold up to 200 tons of cargo. How much is 200 tons of cargo? Well, it's a lot. But in comparison, a tractor trailer today, you see on the highway, carries about 22 tons. So that's, a steamboat would carry 9 times approximately what a tractor trailer carries today. So massive amounts of everything from live hogs to cotton, you name it. Certainly sugar, all the delicacies that citizens of Nashville came to enjoy and love. A lot of them came by steamboat, and then came along the railroad. We'll see a little bit later here Maxwell House Hotel holiday menu that had to have been possible due to the food supply that came in by railroad. So here's the book, Our Food Heritage, and it can be found at Metro Nashville Archives, can be also found at the Tennessee State Library and Archives. After Wanda discovered it, I went to TSLA and with a roll of dimes and copied off page by page. It was such a fascinating little book, and first published in 1930, then updated in 1958. So the perspective from this book is what they knew in 1958, what they knew and loved about Nashville's food heritage. These are some of the wonderful people who put this together. You may recognize some names. And here's the people that did the work, the community consultants and the subcommittees You may know May Winston Caldwell wrote or produced the beautiful and historical homes in and near Nashville. And Dr. Leland Crabb wrote historical novels, Breakfast at the Hermitage, and so on. Franz Bouquet, we'll hear about, was an extraordinarily talented baker. So, on with the show. Here's the table of contents. To figure out how to present this, I've broken it up. I made a little spreadsheet of each chapter, but this is the table of contents. And it starts with a few opening remarks. You can read them or just glance at them. You see a good deal of civic pride and love of Nashville by these the committees and the people that created these books. Here's the first section, Customs and Foods of Pioneer Nashville. And you can tell this is amateur production because they put Ulysses Grant in with the pioneers. Of course, he was not here till 1862 or 3. But it leads in with the initial Captain John Donaldson and the expedition that came by boat to Nashville. And it says in the narrative they needed food, of course. They found buffalo that they could use for meat, a swan, and a supply of Shawnee salad gathered in the river bottom. So what is Shawnee salad? It's actually pictured here, Virginia water leaf, and it looks like it could be a good salad green, found in the river bottom. Of course, river bottom is not at the bottom of the river. That's the low-lying land on the edge of the river. What cooking implements did they bring on the adventure on the boat? Not too much, but they had iron hooks, they called cranes, pictured at left here, with which to hang pots over fires. These they prized very much. Did you ever drink water from a gourd? They had gourds of different sizes, smaller ones used for drinking, the large ones used for buckets and baskets. There were a few wooden bowls, and so forth. Apparently they had a very cold winter, the first winter. Much of the game was starving. The deers were not in abundance, but they survived somehow. And then in the fall, says that they climbed the grapevines, ate the grapes. They found the persimmon trees on the hillside sloping from Cedar Knob, which is where our state capitol is today. Grew many hickory nut trees. And corn. Corn was the most plentiful and easily produced, but not without some risk. So Indian ravages often left no corn standing. Luxuries in food were unknown. Salt was brought in on pack horses and sold for $10 a bushel. So settlers of the bluff and surrounding stations lived during the first winter and spring, chiefly in wild game. The settlers now were in great need of salt. The first wedding, 1780. They had no flour, so they sent people up to Danville, Kentucky, and they each came back with a bushel of corn in their saddle baskets, and they ground that into corn meal, from which they made the first bride's cake in Middle Tennessee. Next is Pioneer Hotels, and very quickly the Nashville Inn was constructed, probably originated from Talbot's Tavern, who was an African-American became a free entrepreneur a great innkeeper, tavern keeper. There's some early diaries of settlers. But interesting well, anyway, the town grew rapidly. I think we all know that. But it's pretty amazing how prosperous and how well developed it soon became. So by 1797, it looked like, from the outskirts, a sophisticated little town based on the number of fine carriages and the wealth that was developing in greater Nashville. Here, this section of the book deals with some of the famous old homes and that helped establish the community of Nashville. Here we have pictured, top right, Traveler's Rest, and I think we're all familiar somewhat with that, and the famous Glenlevin Mansion, which today operates as Glenlevin Farm, with some 65 acres, and incidentally, they do have community days open to the public from time to time. If you go to their website and just check out Glenlevin Farm, the Land Trust for Tennessee does provide open house, and they have some walking trails and so forth. They're developing a beautiful master plan right now for Glenlevin. So Traveler's Rest, John Overton, wealthy landowner and attorney, friend of Andrew Jackson's. I'll have to speed through some of these. We're focused on the food. The farm was self-supporting, huge hams, lamb, and their specialty, chicken and turkey. Chicken pot pie, a favorite. Peach orchards. So the fertile soil and the industriousness of the early citizens put this together. Hominy, I had to look this one up. Hominy consists of field corn kernels soaked in an alkali solution of lye, which removes the hull and germ, making the corn easier to grind and cook with. Canned hominy can be bought today. And what about beaten biscuits? Beaten biscuits. They had no leavening agent or yeast in the flour. So the way they put bubbles in the flour by beating with either an axe handle or some kind of wooden implement, such as pictured here, until bubbles formed in the flour, and then it could be baked and made into biscuits. And there are people's diaries that describe the sound of beating the biscuits, hearing the beating of the biscuits in the kitchen for 30 minutes. And here's how they looked, beaten biscuits. This is from our very own Belmead plantation. Now we'll take a look at Glenlevin here. This was located very close to Traveler's Rest. It says usually there would be 4 or 5 vegetables on the table at dinner, each having been grown on the farm. Corn pudding was a favorite delicacy in the family. When vegetables were in season, many were canned. Jellies and jams were made from the fruits and berries, which grew abundantly on the large farm. What you see in the right-hand picture here are some of the outbuildings, original outbuildings that are still there for us to enjoy. They include smokehouse, a root cellar. They also have 2 barns, a spring house, and more. Here the book describes very little fish was served at Glenlevin, usually only that caught in nearby streams. Next paragraph, although beef was not raised or served as often as fowl, at Christmas, a huge spiced round was always prepared. And we'll hear more about spiced round later. The desserts were very rich, charlotte russe, and many fruit desserts were made, blackberry pie, and so forth. And we're fortunate to have some notes from a descendant who was born and raised on Glenlevin Farm. Ophelia Payne's here with us. She interviewed her father, who had memories of his grandmother and grandfather. So I think if you just take a moment to read this, you'll enjoy it. But they always had the hog killing season on these farms. I'm going to advance to the next, okay? They had a big garden. I mean, a big garden. Everybody on a farm had chores to do. One of them was churning milk. So they still have the old ice house there, spring house that would have been one place to keep ice. And ice would have been kept through the summer by covering it with sawdust. Thank you, Ophelia. Bellevue was another famous home. And you can see the massive number of acreage. Some of these tracts of land, of course, came to Revolutionary War officers and soldiers. The government didn't have cash to pay their soldiers. They gave land grants in many cases. So a favorite of Bellevue was said to be chess pie, and I'm sure we've all enjoyed chess pie. Lots of sugar. It mentions country ham, biscuits, black-eyed peas. So the black-eyed peas, a note about that. It's a picture of the black-eyed peas and some of the food history. Why do Southerners eat black-eyed peas? According to the internet, it says when Sherman's troops came, they overlooked the black-eyed peas. Why do African Americans eat black-eyed peas? Well, to bring good luck. And the Jewish custom, also for good luck. Anyway, don't forget to eat your black-eyed peas next New Year's Day. And that looks like some greens, right? Greens and ham. Melrose, I think all primarily that we now remember about Melrose is a restaurant, a local restaurant company called M.L. Rose. But you can see Melrose when you drive through it on, 8th Avenue? But it was a large tract of land. This home, like many others, had beautiful planned gardens, picturesque. Van der Kirkland ended up living here, Chancellor of Vanderbilt University in later years. And then another famous home was Andrew Jackson's Hermitage. First begun in 1804 and expanded. That's a very well-preserved home today. Here's a picture of the recreated dining room of the Hermitage. And we have a nice menu here, Christmas at the Hermitage. Note, we have birds on the breakfast menu. When's the last time you saw birds on the breakfast menu? Again, we see spiced round, but this is a very lavish holiday dinner, special occasion dinner. On the right here, we have turkey hash, which was said to have been a favorite of Andrew Jackson. On the left, actually a honeycomb. Who's taken a bite from a honeycomb? Really good. And here we have Belmont, the home of Belmont, Adelicia Ackland, one of the most magnificent homes in Middle Tennessee or in the state, the wealthiest person. Now the center are integrated into Belmont University, which helps perpetuate us as Athens, the Athens of the South, a great university. She was known for her lavish dinner spread, and they have a recreated dining room there if you visit. So a couple of the notable items in the book are the boiled custard and ambrosia. We've got a picture of the boiled custard. It says here, Southern custard is a wonderful winter beverage, part custard and part heaven. Another is Charlotte Russe, and here's a bit of interesting food history. The center paragraph, well, it says it's not a Southern-born dessert. It was brought in, but it was very popular here, and it looks great. Another one, plum pudding, indicates it was at one time known as figgy pudding. Dates back to English medieval times. In its earliest forms, more savory than sweet, made with a mixture of meat and root vegetables. Eventually, dried or candied fruits were added, giving it the name plum pudding, since plum was used as a generic term for dried fruit. Now we have Belle Meade. By the way, some notable names in Nashville history who helped save and preserve Belle Meade include Ann Dallas Dudley, the famous suffragist of the early 20th century, and more recently, Irene and Ridley Wills, who applied great leadership and contributions to make it the popular tourist attraction it is today, thus perpetuating its heritage and culture. Anyway, Belle Meade, again, another place known for its lavish spread in the dining room. The book progresses into foods that made Nashville famous. And of course, hot chicken's not there. But at the time, this was, as perceived in 1958, decorative cakes, Betty Lyle Wilson's, confectionaries, plum pudding, Maxwell House coffee, spice round, and ice cream. So Betty Lyle Wilson was apparently an invalid who was exceptionally gifted in the kitchen, creating things like this. And they were exported around the country also. We'll mention the Maxwell House coffee story because there's more than one version of it, but this is what I believe to be a true, correct version. Joel Owsley Cheek, the founder of Maxwell House Coffee, was a coffee peddler initially, or drummer. They called a traveling salesman drummer. And he rode by horseback from Kentucky, and he experimented with coffee. He eventually found a blend of coffee that he thought was special, and he brought it to the Maxwell House Hotel and asked if they would consider making it their house blend, their house brand of coffee. And in a blind taste test, his coffee won, and that's how it all began. So that's where the name Maxwell House Coffee came. And the good to the last drop slogan was invented at Madison Avenue in the 1930s. It was not original to Teddy Roosevelt's visit in the early 20th century. In fact, his comment, supposedly when he tasted the coffee, was, "By George, this is the kind of coffee I like when I go bear hunting." But they never put that on the can of Maxwell House. This is spiced round. I'd love to buy some of this over the holidays. It used to be exported in large quantities from the Germantown part of Nashville, the meatpacking district. So it originated from the need to preserve the meat. Here you see a picture of an old-timey picture. Spiced round is being sold there. And here, to follow the narrative of the book, we have Mitchell's Candy. And some people probably remember Candyland. Mitchell's had a wide following. So now we're getting into the restaurants, and there's probably people here in the audience who had other favorite restaurants from downtown Nashville, but this is what's in the book. And interesting to see what was, in 1958, considered the kind of the top of the line, the most notable and famous restaurants for Southern food. Hetty Ray's Tea Room definitely is in a Hall of Fame. Established 1897 and moved to several locations. Seated 142 people. Everything was served there, not just tea. They were the first to install electric refrigerators, gas stoves, and other modern conveniences. So here's a generic photo that's not taken in Hetty Ray's, but you get the idea how much wonderful socializing and satisfying food could be found in a restaurant like that. Something else they were famous for was the smothered chicken. Says here, Dinah Shore, Jimmy Milton, Nelson Eddy, and others enjoyed the smothered chicken there at Hetty Ray's. Then we go on to Satsuma Tea Room. 1918, two young women moved here to Nashville, decided to go into the restaurant business. And they persevered, did extremely well, and attracted a large following. In the center of the picture here, you can see the sign that says Satsuma. This will be looking north on 6th Avenue North. That's where the TPAC building is today. They serve both northern and southern foods, famed for their spoon bread, blueberry muffins, strawberry shortcake, and pecan cake. Looks good, right? Oh, some of the celebrities: Carrie Chapman Catt, Alvin York, the cast of Peter Pan, and others. And here's a book. I didn't buy this book, but it's out there for sale. So they finally closed in 2001. They made a great run. So we thank you for the perfectly seasoned vegetables from the farmer's market, the hand-washed turnip greens, freshly pickled corn, delicate baby peas, tasty Crowder peas, and of course the luscious Bradley tomatoes around the 4th of July. Thank you for the homemade soups made from scratch, cheese, potato, and white bean. We thank you for the coconut cream pie and other selections. Not to be forgotten is the chocolate pie and the blackberry cobbler. So we thank you for the homemade rolls and hot corn sticks brought right to the table straight from the oven. This is in the book Jungerman and Rust, the last names of two individuals, began way back 1859 as a grocery and bakery. Here we see some newspaper advertisements, and these are way back 1905 newspaper advertisements in our local newspaper. You can see how interesting and appealing it would be to go to their store and buy some things. Do you remember that candy, how good that was? Make you think of, what, holidays? Grandma's house, maybe. Falcon's restaurant was on Union Street. This gentleman came first to New Orleans during the Civil War, and or thereabouts. I'm a little off on that. 1880s, but he soon moved to Nashville as an accomplished chef and had one of the most famous restaurants in Nashville for many, many years. Falcon's salad was a secret. It's now served at Jimmy Kelly's, but he had a large following on Union Street. Here's a picture of Mr. Falcon, and the center paragraph, Falcon made it worth their while to visit his establishment. He became known as a great artist, a master of cookery. For every meat that was cooked in the kitchen, there was provided a special gravy of a different flavor. He even had a breakfast dish especially suited for those who had stayed up too late the night before and whose stomachs was insulted by whiskey. Eggs shard in butter. It was his salad, however, that was considered his masterpiece. So there's quite a bit of documentation on file for him, not in the book, but it's available. There's one story: as he became older and business dwindled, he could not afford to have service staff, so he would take the order in the restaurant, and then he would go to the door of the kitchen and shout out the order into the kitchen, and he would trot back in there and prepare the dinner. Here's about a 1918 photo of looking down east on Union Street, and you can see Falcon's on the right. Kleeman's restaurant. This was a very popular place. Started in 1917. Show you a picture of it here. There's no art on the walls, just white tablecloth, but pretty large capacity. Kleeman's became known, amongst other things, for its apple pie. Apple pie was something it was famous for. And there are people who still produce the Kleeman's apple pie. It had the lattice topping on it, as you can see, woven. And I was told that Harvey's started selling Kleeman's apple pie later. Here's a part of the menu from Kleeman's. It continues to the next slide, but it's always fun to look at the food prices also.
Those are not dollars.
Those are, no,
They're dollars now.
50 cents for a hamburger steak. And it continues here. So a very full menu. Mm-hmm.
What is hard sauce? Is it cherry roll hard?
Sugar and whiskey. Butter. Hard salt. It's not hard liquor.
Well, food is really fun and it's interesting. Here's one recipe for beet relish salad, and here's what egg bread is. It's kind of a lot like like French toast. So they served what was served on egg bread. I'm going to go back. Sliced chicken on egg bread was served. So we'll continue to the Brass Rail Stables. I never would have imagined that was a high-end restaurant locale right there, Printer's Alley. But famous here as the place where Andrew Jackson parked his horse, if you will, and very, very popular in its day for grilled steaks, charcoal broiled steaks, and chicken. So that looks really great, doesn't it? Of course, there's a checkered past at Printer's Alley, and part of that was you could get your alcoholic beverages there. Over the years, there were certain efforts to eradicate that, and it went. That's what happened. That's what happened to the Brass Stables. Zager's, another one, very popular restaurant. This was one that had men-only seating, men-only tables, and so forth, and that caused some controversy later on. But that's Mr. Zager in the center and his son on the left. They talk about the Tulane Hotel. That's a personal favorite of mine. No longer exists, but it's a lumpy parking lot 2 blocks west of the public library along Church Street, close to the Hastings architecture, or just below where the former library was. The reason a parking lot is lumpy, it's the filled-in basement of the former Tulane Hotel. And before that, it was the Nicholson House. But it had seen its better days by the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. It was a respectable, yet ordinary place. And my favorite paragraph at the bottom, the Tulane changed hands several times. There were politicians, traveling salesmen, showgirls from the old Princess Vaudeville, dignitaries, a few criminals hiding from the law, a suicide or so. The Tulane got them all. But it was supposed to have been famous for its ham and biscuit sandwiches. Early picture of the Nicholson House on the left. It got kind of bricked over and expanded to become the Tulane Hotel. On a side note, that's where Nashville's first recording took place in the 1940s, and that is in 1911 where the Nashville Equal Suffrage League was founded. The Maxwell House Hotel. This was the king of Nashville hotels in the 1800s. John Overton of Traveler's Rest was the founder. He named it for his wife, whose last name was Maxwell. And it took a while to complete it, but it was just the greatest and best, to the extent out-of-town visitors were brought through Nashville to see the state capitol and then to see the Maxwell House Hotel. A lot of great people stayed there over the years, interesting stories, but that's for another day. You see the coffee beans there. That's a hint about the Maxwell House coffee. Now, this menu is somewhat of a locally famous menu. 1879, and I alluded to this earlier, that the abundance of product on this menu could only have been possible by the trains and the food distribution network that was by that time in place. Can you read some of this okay? I mean, that's just an astounding proliferation of items on the menu. And here's a close-up of part of it. So under game, note Cumberland Mountain black bear. Under that, a Tennessee opossum, baked with sweet potatoes, old Virginia style. Kentucky coon, devil's sauce. So don't you want to try some of those things? No? Well, have another donut. No, but it was a great hotel, and it had a massive kitchen. Here's the dining room of the Maxwell House Hotel. It had skylight up above for daylight to come in. Very artistic and refined dining room. And some of the famous guests included, from left to right, Teddy Roosevelt, Thomas Edison, President McKinley, Buffalo Bill Cody, and sharpshooter Annie Oakley, right? And it was here, again, where Maxwell House coffee became famous. And if you've enjoyed going to Cheekwood lately, you can thank Maxwell House Coffee, because Joel Cheek eventually sold his business and he bought stock in a company called IBM. And he lived happily ever after. The Hermitage Hotel, I won't dwell on this too much since I could, but I'm very proud of the Hermitage. I work there. This is where we discovered the name of the first chef, named as Umberto Corsini. And that led, as I mentioned earlier, to us inviting the Corsini family in for lunch. And with them, they brought this picture. And on the back, it said, the opening of the Hermitage Hotel, September 1910. And that is obviously in the lower dining room of the hotel. And you can see the culinary artistry. Before each chef, they have one of those oval waiter's trays with a food creation. And there's actually some little white twinkle lights that were there, and little labels describing what each item is. But the chef in the center was French. His name was Camille Ravad. And he stayed here only about 4 years. And he went back to serve his country in the Great War and was never heard from again. Well, he wrote a letter back, but that was it. Here's another Hermitage Hotel favorite. That's a grand banquet in the ballroom. And in the center, the tall man standing before the American flag. That flag with 46 stars helped us pinpoint the date. That man was Luke Lee, and he was honored in his election to the United States Senate. This was a send-off by the Scottish Rite Masons, 1911. Another great hotel, Andrew Jackson, was the state's largest hotel when it opened. And they served one of the largest banquets, maybe the largest ever in Tennessee up to that time. You note at the bottom the paragraph, over 3,000 pounds of roast beef, 25,000 pieces of china and silver, etc. So the Andrew Jackson had a great run right where the TPAC sits now. It's another picture. They had several iterations of the dining room. At one time they made it a Hawaiian theme. But here it's the Hickory Room. It was a favorite political hangout. Here we have the, I think I've jumped ahead to the Women's Club, place for things you can't do in a restaurant, like a wedding reception, many happy family occasions, social meetings. founded in 1909. Another club was the Hermitage Club, excuse me. This was the first 2 stories were originally the residence of George C. Cunningham, who was in the Confederate Army and did not come back. His house was appropriated and was made the Western Theater of War headquarters for the Union Army. In that home served Ulysses S. Grant, Rosecrans, Thomas, Buell, even Sherman worked in that building, and George C. Thomas, many of the great generals. Cumberland Club, another prominent downtown club. This was the Elks Club. That was on 6th Avenue North, where TPAC is now. And this shows the demise of both the Andrew Jackson Hotel and the Elks Club Lodge. But they had their day. This is a scene of merriment. Chef Alfred Vagliazzo, who's one of the contributors to this book. Here's the chef on a lighter moment. He might have been an early Music City star, who knows. Here's the Colmere Club. And it's important to note that this is where Monell's is now. It has a different look, but Monell's is soon to be removed for the airport expansion. So if you'd like your last look at Monell's, now's your chance to make a reservation. But the site of many, many fine events, such as these. Turtle race, lower left. Looks like fun. Then we're into the golf and country clubs. The Belle Meade, of course, is the gold standard for country clubs. I'll rush through some of these, but famous to this day. Hillwood, noted for excellent food. In the background is a Hawaiian luau event. And traditions of our foreign neighbors. So Bouquets was a phenomenal, talented pastry chef. His friends told him a coffee shop, a place serving only coffee, would never succeed. Here he's making a replica of the state capitol. Corsini's, he brought Italian food into Nashville, not the only one, but one of several. He sold frozen food, so you could come home and make your Italian dinner. This is him in that picture as a young man with his food creation, and on the right, as a more mature adult, his handwritten menus. He came to this country speaking no English, and he learned it very well. When you think how a chef has to handwrite their own menus every day back then and see what's available at the market, see what's in the refrigerator, see what's on the shelf, it is really amazing how they do it. Zager's, famous for gourmet store. This was one that had a men's only floor, and here the woman crashed the party. This was 1970, and it became integrated. Melfi's, another. Here's something Melfi's was famous for, chili, and some of their popular clientele were the traveling, the vaudeville performers, as well as college students. Zanini's, here's a picture of Zanini's down 6th Avenue, towards the left part of the picture. Cross Keys was another well-known restaurant. Zanini's Interior. And I'm closing with observations from old cookbooks. They have old recipes. So again, if you'd like to have a look at these books, please check out your public library. And butchers in Nashville, we wouldn't know, but all these German butchers. I'm just going to zip through.
They have more statistics.
Kitchen Wrinkles, the book's closed with little tips. My favorite at the bottom, to clean windows, the wing of turkeys, geese, and chickens are good to wash and clean windows, as they leave no dust or lint. So today's a rainy day. You may need to clean your windows when you go home. Gas cooking, bibliography. These books are available in the downtown public library. I've, of course, tilted the images. They don't stack them that way at the library. But they got a great collection of cookbooks. And I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you.